This is not meant to sound profound. It's one of those statements people have when they're stoned. And they write it down, and the next day they think they've discovered truth, and then next day they look at what they wrote, and they realize how foolish they are. But let me say it anyway. Life is really complex. And when you enter into the world of sociology, any world whatsoever, but sociology nonetheless, or as well, life's really complex, and the issues are complex. So when we look at something like immigration or refugees or anything related to the social world, but let's just stick with immigration, especially when it's a hot-button issue, the factors and forces that you have to bring to the conversation if you want to try to understand them are not factors and forces that you're going to discover sitting down with your friends at a bar drinking a beer, or listening to a talk show, or listening to the president of your country, past or present or future, or whatever the case is, or going to a single class, even a class that's dedicated to the topic, but certainly not this class. This class is only good insofar as you can learn how much you don't know by just listening to the things that I say from lots of different places on the spectrum. And then when you realize you don't know, then human beings can begin to understand what's going on. Because you learn what's going on by learning what you don't know. I mean, that's the starting point, right? I start with the idea that I don't know. And but what I know is that just on immigration alone, hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds, thousands of very well thought out books and monographs have been written about immigration. And probably hundreds of thousands of pages of policy recommendations have been written about immigration from all sides of the political spectrum, taking into account factors and forces that for any one of us, it would take us a lifetime to begin to understand what those are. So when I hear somebody, maybe it's some talking head on television or who knows what it might be, who they might be, talking about something like immigration as though they're really simplistic issues, whether it's Barack Obama or Donald Trump or somebody from some random university or think tank somewhere, I'm blown away by how simple they are trying to make this appear to be, and coupling with how complex I know that it is. And so for me, for example, I spent 2 years, when I did my master's degree, I spent 2 years studying immigration pretty thoroughly. I took probably 3 classes on immigration, and I wrote a lot about it. I went to conferences where I talked about it, did some research on it, and I didn't even scratch the surface. I just learned how ignorant I was, which is really important, because it's really, for me, as someone who teaches, it's really important for us to know how ignorant we are, because that allows us then to stand up here and say stuff, right? So keep that in mind as we move forward. Now, what was interesting about last class for me was just presenting different sides of this issue. And knowing that I could just go into this, I could have just picked one side, and I could have just walked in here and spent the entire time making that argument, if that was my political and ideological perspective. And I could do that with any issue related to this class. Just pick kind of one particular side of the argument and walk down those stairs. And you wouldn't know the difference. Some of you would say well, I don't know, my uncle told me this, or my parents, or I read that, or what about this? But mostly, these are issues that very few of you think a lot about. And so I could come in here and just walk down that one path. Or I could walk down this other path, a completely different one. And you wouldn't know unless you've been thinking about it. And I'm telling you, human beings do that all the time. We just cherry pick. So I basically, when I was putting that class together, last class, I was just cherry picking different ideas that I was going to apply to the different sides. Now, mind you, the one brother up here was saying, it seemed like I was more enthusiastic about critiquing the people who are anti-immigration. Well, there's more to critique on that. There's more to critique, because there's more to critique related to economics. So I can draw on economic factors and forces and economic data, and I can make a much more persuasive argument than critiquing the people who tend to be more pro-immigration, where there are some economic data, which I threw out there, but it's also morality and ethics comes into this picture. Like, well, it's the right thing to do, and these are human beings, and that's just harder to really get under for me. I can do it, but I can't do it quickly like I was trying to do last class. So yeah, I'm sure I was a little more enthusiastic from the one side. Okay? Are we good on that? But you all saw, right, how I just cherry picked? Dude, so hang on a second. Hang on. Wait, hang on. Don't talk. Do you understand how profound it is that I could walk into this class and just give you one side of an argument and not the other, and you would never know the difference? Do you get that? So what makes you think that the people who you look up to and think are really smart are not doing that in your life? What makes you think like your Uncle Bill or whoever it is that, has got all these really strong ideas, like he's really liberal or he's really conservative, or your Aunt Sandra or whoever it is, or your mother or your father or your grandfather who's a really smart guy and you really look up to him? What makes you think that he has really examined all sides, or at least even two sides of an issue? It's like, dude, come on, man. We don't even really do that. Like, we get locked into some ideological perspective and we go for it, especially in the world of sociology. We tend to be a little more left-leaning, and we come in and we just give you the perspective. We sort of carve it up, we box it up, and then we just package it to you as if that's truth. People are doing that and it's done in the hard sciences and it's done in the soft sciences and the humanities. Dude, okay, man. Sometimes when you get to be my age, stuff is more mind-blowing than it is when you're at the age of most of you, not all of us, but most of you. You get to my age and it's mind-blowing, because I've never done that in class before, where I took a single issue and took two sides and just cherry-picked what I wanted to do. And when I got done with that, I was blown away by how much of my life I have spent not fairly presenting multiple sides of issues. And I'm like, I've been teaching for 33 years. I'm like, what a jerk off. I mean, I went home and looked in a mirror and I thought, 33 years. What a effing jerk off. Fuck. Dudes, I know you have to believe in somebody or something, but whatever. Just let that turd sit in the punch bowl for a little bit. All right, man. Don't believe in me. Do never believe in me, man. I know most of you don't anyway, but don't ever think that. All right, so listen, let me go back to this. Let me just go to a couple things that I think are, I want to go back. I want to hear what you have to say. And so look, I want to be really, I want to put this out there in a more lucid way. So there's this call, and I'm seeing it, and look, I see it in like Donald Trump has put this perspective out there. We're going to round up the illegal immigrants and we're going to send them back home, right? And so you go to, I watched and not many of them, trust me, because I don't watch political rallies. But I watch some of these rallies, and I'm watching people cheer and holler and so on. And I think, we've done that before, y'all, right? And I could show you video after video after video. We could spend the entire semester of me doing nothing but showing you interviews of farmers and employers who have low-level jobs to fill, talking about how they cannot find naturalized citizens to come and do these jobs because they don't want them. And that if we didn't have undocumented workers working in the agricultural sector, we, the United States, would be in deep trouble. Unless you just wanted to double the price of your food, which is fine for me. That's not an issue. Double the price of gas, double the price of food, whatever. I make enough money, I can pay for it. That's not a problem for me. But if you want to do that, that's great. But otherwise, because you're going to have to pay a lot more for labor. But even these guys, I could show you a video. I could show you many videos of even owners of these farms that are employing like 25 to 50 people who double the prices, paying $15 an hour, $20 an hour to pay Americans to come and work in the fields and pick whatever it is, right? Watermelon and cantaloupe and peppers and whatever. And after 1 hour, 2 hours, one day, they go home and they're just, I'm not doing this anymore. And this was done when these laws have been passed by states. They've been passed against the lobbying of the farmers who are saying, dude, you can't do this. We can't do this. We will have no labor. So I don't know why Americans won't do the jobs. I did that work when I was a kid. So I wouldn't want to do it now. I did it when I was a kid. I don't know why it is. You could force people. Maybe we should take people out of prison and force them to do the work. I have no idea. If you collect welfare, you should have to do that. Does that mean rich people who are in welfare? Because most welfare goes to rich people, not poor people. I don't really know what that means. But the point is, across the board, it is absolutely not a question. The states at this point in time have just pulled that off the table. So when Donald Trump's talking about rounding up illegal immigrants and all of his people at these rallies, I'm saying this now to all the Trump people out here, and the people at his rallies are cheering like, yeah, and waving the flags. I'm like, it's not going to happen. Because there's not a state in the United States that's going to send the undocumented workers home. It's not going to happen. So, like, what kind of world are we living in here? That is not on the table. It is not on the table. So, I don't know much about immigration, but I know that. So does anybody want to respond to that? Does anybody have a yes, but? And this is a time, we can go back from last class. This would be a time when more of you then, or anybody could say, yeah, but you're not thinking about this and you're not thinking about that. Because I can tell a different story. There are other stories to this. But this is one piece of that story, which I'm telling you, I know this deeply to be true. I don't know much to be true, but I know this to be true. But maybe somebody in here knows something I don't know. Does anyone want to kick it out? Because it's profound. When the whole world is we don't even think about what it means. And suddenly it's like, you can't do that. It's not going to happen. Anybody want to kick that out? Anyone sitting here thinking like I'm an idiot? You could raise your hand for that. You think I don't know what I'm talking about? Okay, one person. All right. I think I'm an idiot. I don't know. No, but I really don't. I'm actually not going to be self-deprecating right now. I'm giving you the one thing that of all semester, I haven't said a lot that I would stand behind and say it's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Okay? So why does Trump do that? Why do politicians move their lips? Because they want to lie. You know what I mean? How do you know a politician is lying? They're moving their lips, right? Whether it's Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, it's completely irrelevant, right? So, I don't know, dudes. Okay? Are we good? No one wants to add anything to that? Did anyone catch my welfare comment? You get that, right, y'all? Right? Most welfare, meaning when we take money from the taxpayers and we give it to people who need help in some way because they can't provide on their own. They can't provide for their resources. You do realize that the vast majority of welfare actually goes to rich people, not poor people. It's called welfare. And so, but what we do is we live in this world where it's beautiful, actually. If you're on top, what you want to do is you want to keep people on the bottom 2/3 arguing with each other about the people below them. Get everyone to argue about the people below them, and nobody ever looks up. And then it's like, oh yeah, they're the problem. It's the poor people who aren't working. What about all the banks that just walk away with all your taxpayer money, $22 trillion in the most recent debacle? Actually, it's not funny. Shit. All right, next one. Dude, another thing. Are we good? Yeah. So here's another one. This issue of wage depression, this is a real issue. There is no question but that immigrants they depress wages, man. That's pretty clear. And so, that's not good if if you're in that industry. If you're a roofer, a carpenter, a plumber, an agricultural worker, you work in the tech industry and they bring immigrants in who will work for less, you can get some engineers, some of you all, right? Like, here's the deal. You might blame, like, oh, I didn't get the job because they gave it to a woman, or they gave it to this black guy, or some Latino woman, or whatever the case is, right? Don't argue about affirmative action. It's more likely that they went overseas and they used an H-1B visa that they really didn't need to use, and they brought somebody from India or somebody from China or somebody else over here, and while you would have been paid $75,000, they're going to pay them $35,000. That's where wage depression happens also. So it's like, look, this happens, and employers use this, right? And so you could argue like, well, but in the end, wage depression, but then that money goes back into the economy in some way. It's basic kind of economics, right? It's not really zero-sum game in that sense. It's okay, that's fine. But it also goes into the pockets of the corporations and wealthier people and so on. And there are some industries, like in farming, is anybody grow up on a farm? Anybody? One. Santini, seriously? You grew up on a farm? Oh, damn, dog. All right. Dude, you grew up on a farm? Who said? Where at? Northern Virginia. So like farming, there's not a lot of, it's hard to make a profit in farming. So like, you got to find ways to cut your costs. And so using immigrant laborers is one way to do that. Dude, you're out of your mind, bro. In a good way. All right. So there's another one. That's the basic thing. So you can argue for immigration, but wait, hang on, come back. There are lots of reasons why you might want more immigration, so on and so forth, but wage depression is an issue that is absolutely always on the table. Always. And maybe you don't get impacted by it. Maybe it's not your family that gets impacted by it, but somebody else's family does. And then you got to balance these things out. Like, okay, what do we do? Okay? Cool? Anyone want to add to that? Anyone want to say anything? Anyone have a yes but? Seriously, I want to get some back here a little bit. So anybody have it? Yeah, bro. Go ahead. Oh, hang on, I got it, dog. It's on, dude.
Sam, I think I have to slightly disagree with you.
Oh, thank God. You can fully disagree with me. Go all in.
Okay, so what I
We're
believe
at Penn
is that
State.
I believe that.
Can you stand up real fast? Well, you're from India, right?
Kind of.
Kind of?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, go ahead.
I am an American citizen, so yeah, you can consider me American as well. So one thing which I disagree with you is that greater productivity happens when you have lower wages for companies and that. And I always compare this situation to the Industrial Revolution. during the Industrial Revolution, many people did lose their jobs, but eventually progress did come, and we wouldn't be living the lifestyle that we live now if without the revolution. And right now,
That's a cornerstone of a libertarian argument. Right? Remove the constraints, and then you're going to see people being more competitive and thinking and growing and getting better, just like you all, right? It's like if you really, really knew that only half of you, when you got out of Penn State, or a third of you were going to get jobs, and the other 2/3 are going to be like, I don't know what we're going to do. There'd be a whole hell of a lot less drinking going on Thursday nights and Friday nights and maybe Saturday nights. Y'all would start, suddenly all this tailgating and all the fun we're having, it's like that stuff would start to go away a little bit because you'd be like, I got to get out. I'm spending a lot of money. I got to get a job. So you start depressing things, create more competition. There's more creativity. Dude, 100% with you, man. Thanks, dog. I appreciate it. All right, next one. Bro, can you go to the next slide? Here, can you pass that? Okay, listen. Can you all do you know how many people are on the planet, dude?
7 billion.
What's that?
7 billion.
7 billion. Close enough. All right? It's a little more than 7 billion, but that's close enough. All right? How many of them want to come to the United States? Can you just have a conversation with your neighbor? 7 billion people. How many would if they could, how many of them would move permanently to the United States? All right, you ready? All right, here we go. What's your name, bro? Teddy. What is it? Teddy. Teddy's going to tell us the answer right here, dude.
We didn't really pick a number, but we said probably not a lot.
Not a lot?
Yeah.
What do you think? Give a number. There's about 7.2 billion.
Maybe like a million.
A million?
Out of that, yeah.
Why? Dude, talk right into the mic. Why only a million?
I don't know. I think, last class we saw how the United States does with
talk
math
right
and
into the mic,
science
dude.
and stuff. So I just think
You just think. All right, dude. He gets called out. Did y'all get a number? Do you have a number? Dude, you have a number. Come on, dog. Who hasn't? Bro, come on. What'd you guys come up with?
We said 500 million.
500 million. Down there, they said, a bunch of people said a billion.
Yeah, it was just a guess.
500 million. What did you all come up with?
We also said a million.
You said a million? 1 million? Dude, seriously? Bro, how many? 1 billion? Dude, hang on a second. Can I bro, 3 million? 3 billion. So 3 billion. So almost half. Dude, come on. A million? Dude, hang on. Can I just walk you through something here really fast? Y'all, listen, man. Think about there's 50 million refugees in the world right now that have no state and nowhere to go and no passport. So that's 50 million refugees. So you're already, every one of them, what do you think? That's going to take us to at least 50 million. Because every one of them would come here instead of what? Being a refugee camp behind barbed wire, right? Now think about all the really poor. Think about the country of Haiti. Think about all the countries going through droughts. All the countries, one after another, after another, after another, right? Okay? So how many people? Give a number.
Oh shit, I'm on the spot. I would say, I don't know. I was just telling her that I have a cousin that lives in Panama. He doesn't want to move to the U.S., so I'm assuming like.
Okay, you have
Not a
one
lot of
person, dude.
people.
There's 7.2
So
billion
I
people.
would say,
Don't
like,
base it
I'll
on
say,
one
like,
person.
I'll say like 5,000. I don't know.
Five-
A million. I don't know. I don't
Oh my God, you people. Listen, man. I'm losing my faith in humanity at regular intervals in this class. Yes. What do you got?
Is it on?
Yep.
I was thinking like 6 billion. If it's
6 million?
billion.
Billion. Like everybody wants to come here. Dude, exactly. When
Well,
you
not
ask
everybody.
Americans, no. But when you ask people, this is like more what they say. If you ask because everyone wants to come to the United States, right? Isn't that? How many people, dudes, seriously, how many people at a Hillary Clinton rally or a Donald Trump rally think that everyone in the world wants to come to the United States? That's why they're waving the flags, man. That's why we got to cut the borders off. Like, of course, they all want to come. When you ask people, that's kind of what they say. All right, listen. The answer, the Gallup did this research all over the world. And Gallup went around the world and did this sampling technique with people all in the poorest countries of the world. The richest countries of the world, the poorest countries of the world. Let me just tell you something really fast here. You ready? 700 million people go to bed hungry every night. You're starting with 700 million people. There's 700 million people that you think would want to come to the United States if they could. Am I right on that? 700 million? You got about 1 billion people that are living on $2 a day or less. There's another 2 billion people you would imagine would come to the United States permanently if they could. Am I right on that? Okay, so when you start talking about it, Americans, we have this idea that everybody wants to come to the U.S. The answer, according to Gallup, in doing the research, is about 138 million people. Even the poorest of the poor, the vast majority of the poorest of the poor, don't want to come here because they're connected to their culture and they're connected where they live. And they're living, they're connected to families, the culture, the land, the history, one thing after another. So, if the United States, what people who then take this research and take it further say, if you completely open the borders of the United States so that anybody could come or go as they pleased, and if you open the borders to all the other nations to which people would want to go, like the U.S. is first, U.K. is second, France is third, and so on and so forth, right? So if we open all the world's borders, it would be something in the nature of 500 million people would travel somewhere. They would go somewhere. But only about 138 million of them would come to the United States because they want to go somewhere else. They want to go from, Malaysia to Indonesia. From, Cambodia to Korea. They'd want to go from, wherever, Kuwait to Qatar, wherever. It's like most people, they don't want to go all the way around the world. So keep that in mind as you think about the question of immigration. The whole world doesn't want to come here. This is not the land paved with gold. People want to come and then they want to go back home. But that's not what this is. And so when we get lost in the immigration debate, we often get lost in that. All right, man. Next one. Oh, dude. Yeah, thanks. Can I just say one thing about DACA? One more thing that I didn't say? Are we all right, dudes? Are you getting, am I just talking to myself? Dude, DACA, when I hear people in a rally saying we have to round up all the illegal people and send them home, think about Beaver Stadium. Most of you have probably been in Beaver Stadium or you've seen photos of Beaver Stadium. It's 100,000 people. Multiply that times 10. Those are all the people who are eligible for DACA. Multiply that times 100. That's about how many undocumented immigrants we have in the United States. That many people. Round them all up, send them home. Good luck. Good luck. How are you going to find them? How are you going to do that? What are you going to do? It's just that all it is, what I see, and this is me just being a complete fool, but I have to say it anyway. What I see when I hear people with this kind of language is just creating these divisions that make no sense because you're not going to round people up. You're not going to send them home. You can't do that. It's too many people. So what you have to do is you have to find some way to accommodate them. That's been true throughout human history. It's true in the United States today, which is exactly why the Border Patrol, where you could have 10,000 undocumented workers rallying in Miami, Florida, or in Charlotte, North Carolina. They could all come out for all the illegal workers. They say, we're coming out for this rally to support illegal workers, to support all of us. And all they got to do is bring the migration along with about, 500 buses and just put them all on buses and take them mostly back to Mexico or Central America or wherever they're from. But it's mostly going to be south of the border. And why don't they do that? Because you just can't. You can't. It's not possible. So I'm just responding to that. Can I just... Okay. Oh my God. I'm ranting. You know that, right? But is it okay, though? I can rant sometimes, right? Fuck. All right. Look, when I see this, and I'm like, that's fine. You can have that sign. You can also have a sign of, I had the other one that I don't know. I put the wrong slide up, by the way, and then I didn't save it. I had two signs here. One was this one, and one was another one saying, all illegals are all people are human, right? Meaning like, it's the liberal version of this. All people are human, right? Whatever it is. But then I wonder, it's like, but these people in particular, it's like illegal is a crime. So is stealing $22 trillion from the American taxpayers, which is what the banks did in the meltdown in 2008. And the Obama administration did not prosecuted precisely one human being as a result of that. By contrast, Obama supporters, thank you very much. What happened was Obama then brought people from the big banks who caused the crisis into his administration so they could do it again, which is exactly what they're doing. Once again, building up another crisis. $22 trillion, y'all. That's what it costs. And not a single one of those people who conducted all of the illegal activity and stole the money and created the worst economic meltdown in human history, not a single one of them got prosecuted. In fact, they got protected. And they got protected by a Democratic president who's supposed to represent the people, and then I see people standing up and cheering for this guy and saying, if Obama is in power, no, Obama didn't do shit. If Trump was in power, by contrast, they actually might have gotten prosecuted. Trump actually, all you Democrats who hate Trump, $22 trillion. If Trump was in power, he might have prosecuted some of those people. Obama did nothing. He brought him into his administration to run the entire banking system. And why are they worried about undocumented workers who are picking their fruit so they can go to the store and buy a mango for $1 as opposed to $4? Why is that? Why aren't they thinking about the banks? They're not thinking about the banks because the whole system has been rigged and set up. I'm sounding like a Marxist because in this moment I am a Marxist. And then because the whole system has been rigged and set up by the Demopublicans or Republicrats, it's one single party of rich people to get people on the bottom, like these knuckleheads right here, to stand out with these signs and point their fingers at people who are living in their land illegally, who are doing work that allows them, that actually saves them money, which they don't know about, whereas the people at the top who steal money left and right, who have decimated their pensions probably, they do nothing. You don't look up, you look down. It's just like how like white people and black and brown people, we like are pointing fingers at each other. It's like, y'all, just come together. Come together, man. You have a hell of a lot more in power together than we do, and than we do separated. Why don't you look at banks? Why is it when I say, well, if I say welfare, everyone thinks the poor single mother who's sitting home watching television. You don't think about the banker who's just got the tax break for, $300,000, and that's your tax money. Or the corporation that just got a tax break for $1.2 billion. It's like, what's that about? And the CEO of that corporation that makes, $40 million a year. But it's like, no, we love that person. We just don't like those people on the bottom. So it's like, we have to ask, do I sound like a radical? Dude, do I sound like a radical? It's actually not radical. Does it sound radical? Sound radical to you? Bro, doesn't sound right. It sounds like normal. Like, why the fuck? I'm going to drop another F-bomb. That's 3. I've caught up now. I had 1 a week, right? Did I have 1 a week? I think I'm going to be caught up now, right? So be ready. Seriously, I'm not going to drop it. It's not good. I already said it. Do you get it? Do you get it, right? Why are you going to go? If you go and talk to your friends and be like, hey, we're going to have a conversation about, I don't know, there's a thing on the television about illegal immigrants. Just turn the conversation toward that $22 trillion number. It's not difficult. It's not rocket science. There's many things that are very clearly published all about the banking crisis. And Obama just gave it away. Gave it all away. It's very clear. But no, we'll just prefer to yell at each other. That's why I teach this class, by the way, because it's like, you're not going to get away with that shit in here. I'm going to force you to have to think about some things that maybe we don't want to think about, that are uncomfortable. Yes, ma'am.
So one of the business that Trump profits from is real estate.
Yeah, totally.
And real estate for him is linked with Florida, South Florida.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And those
Trump
workers
got rich over this.
that he is hiring to work on real estate are afraid because they can be sent back.
Yeah, exactly.
So they are willing to take jobs where they are being paid less.
Yeah, totally.
And the more scared they are, the lower wages they're gonna get.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Then what happens if in Puerto Rico they don't receive help and things are really, really tough? Where will they move?
They're going to come here because they're American citizens.
And where here, where they will
They're
have
gonna go to
family?
Florida.
South Florida.
Exactly.
And they will have to buy what?
Yeah.
House.
Yep. It's beautiful. No, it's all this big, huge connection.
Right.
No, absolutely. No, I have no question about that.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be arguing about stupid stuff that doesn't matter and not seeing, never looking up. You never look up. And I'm like, why don't you look up? Why don't people look up, dude? You know what I mean? It's like, look, can I tell you something? I'm from the working class, by the way. So I am, you know how people say, like, I work for everything I have. Okay, on one hand, I did, but I'm also a white man. So my white skin is my affirmative action. There's no question, right? I got benefits that I didn't even know I got, but, I have, was it you, bro? But I'm a man, so I get benefits. I didn't know I got benefits all through my life, but I did. I don't see them. You don't see them, right? When you get affirmative action, you don't see it. But my white skin, I get affirmative action because I know there are certain jobs or positions or conversations or meetings that I had because I'm white and whatever, right? I get that, so I get it. Aside from those things, I'm a working class, man. So it's like I just actually have a little problem with that $22 trillion number. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about where you're getting that number from.
That number from the General Accountability Office, actually from the U.S. government, is probably higher.
There's just no way that $22 trillion went to banks, and they paid
No,
all
no, no,
of it
dude,
back,
no, no. That's what
but-
it costs. That's what it
I know.
costs the U.S. economy. That
Okay.
number is actually what absolutely, completely the crisis cost the U.S. economy.
Okay, and
$22
then
trillion.
I was wondering how you could explain how welfare goes towards rich people. I was just, wondering where you were getting
Dude,
at.
so for example, here's what you do. Look at tax breaks to, let's say, the rice industry. All right? Rice industry in the United States, tax breaks, meaning we subsidize the rice industry. And how much do we give the rice industry? Because American rice, by the way, thanks for raising these questions, dude, because you should. And I'm only going to give you a couple of responses because I can't give you a lot of responses. My job right here is just to provoke you to go do the research yourself, right? So, dude, rice industry. Let me tell you how it works real fast, all right? Are you a business guy, dude? So, are you like... Business student, right? Okay. So you should look into this stuff, right? So, wait, hang on.
You were just making it sound like the $22 trillion was a wealth transfer to banks and institutions. And
That's what the economy lost.
Yeah,
The actual
it
wealth
was a net-
transfer?
It was a net loss. There
No,
was
but they
no-
caused it, though. They caused it, right?
The banks themselves did not cause it.
Dude,
Okay,
who caused it? I mean, not
I'm
the
not
bank.
gonna get into like.
No. Dude, hang on. Let me help you out here, right?
No, I mean, I know about this topic. They teach it in the business school here. The reason the economy collapsed is because there were subprime mortgages being written by real estate agents, and then the banks were buying them, and they weren't getting looked at because it's impossible to look at all of the minute details. When someone finally did look at it, then speculation happened, and a bunch of people made money off of realizing that other people didn't see this
All right.
mistake. But the only reason I asked for the mic was in this class, it's important. There are a lot of different important issues being brought up, and we have numbers to kind of like quantify
Yeah.
the issues. And I just was wondering if you could talk about like where you were getting that number.
Okay,
and then,
I will.
yeah.
All right, I'll give one. Listen, that's fine. What I will tell you is, on the banking crisis one, just go deeper with it, okay? It starts with the entire way in which the entire banking and housing system is linked together. And it started back in the early 1980s with the very first crisis. And they ripped off all of the regulations from it, and then it's just one slow spiral downward, bro. So what happens is, in business school, it's really easy to like, oh, it's the problem of all these like individual loan, organizations giving out loans and stuff. It's heavily more I know you'll get there, right? I mean, whatever. But listen, let me give you one on this other one. So $400 million is what we give to the rice industry. Why? Because rice farmers, which are mostly corporations now in the United States, can't produce rice as inexpensively as China and Brazil and Mexico and Colombia and other countries, right? So because we can't compete and we want to compete, the U.S. taxpayers have to give the rice industry money. And the industry is not poor farmers. The industry is corporations. And so we take tax dollars and we give them these rebates essentially on every pound of rice that they produce. In which case, dude, in a free market economy, you don't do that. That's just rice. $400 million a year. So go beyond rice to the automobile industry and the ethanol industry and one after another, the banking industry and bailing out. This whole bailout here. The whole bailout is free money. It's welfare. Because the 99% of the bailout money went to the rich people. So it's like, okay, whatever. That's welfare, bro. That's what I'm talking about. It's not like some poor single mother who's like working on the street. And here's my thing. The reason I'm rocking on this is all I'm doing is just like, I just want a little bit of a wedge in the thinking to just say, don't walk down this same damn path. God. Dude, thanks for that, by the way. All right, next one. talk about this. Hey, does anybody have parents who haven't learned, who immigrated here and they've been here a long time and they haven't learned English? They haven't learned it? Your parent, how long have they been here? 20 years they haven't learned English? Yeah, wait, can you come up here real fast? Just real fast. So we have this idea, real fast. I just wanted to hear this story. So one of the things that we talk about is all the immigrants who come here and they don't learn English. And I know, I travel a lot, so I think about how much I've spent time in other countries. I mean, I speak Spanish, but I don't. So your parents have been here 20? How long?
Well, my dad does know English, but that's because he's Venezuelan and he studied in Mexico.
Hold it close.
He got a job in LA and he learned English. But my mom, she came around probably like 95, and she moved to Miami, and she hasn't needed it there.
So in Miami, she absolutely doesn't need English, but you
No.
don't. You need Spanish. English
Yes.
speakers need Spanish to get on in Miami.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so does she talk about, I should learn English someday, or does it even come up in your house?
Well, she actually went to a private school in Nicaragua where she was taught French and English other than Spanish, but she hated English because she didn't like it, and she regretted it, but
So she's from Nicaragua,
yeah,
and your dad's from Venezuela.
yeah.
So how do they get by? How do they get by without? Can you tell the class? Because most people, has anyone ever been to Miami? Okay, so can you tell the other people, what's it like in Miami? How do you survive without speaking English?
Well, everybody speaks Spanish, so that's how you survive.
When you say everybody, what do you
okay,
mean?
so if my mom were to go to a supermarket and she needs to find something, she asks someone oh, where's the bananas, and they'll know what she's saying in Spanish because they speak Spanish.
Because everybody speaks Spanish.
Yes.
Street signs?
Yes, also a lot of, if you hear in the airport, everything is repeated once in English, once in Spanish. Everything is, there's always translations for Spanish too.
Sometimes
Miami.
first in Spanish, and
Yes.
secondly in English.
Yeah.
When you get on the phone and you call and you're if you want to speak Spanish, hit 2 or whatever. But it's if you want to speak English, hit 2, because this call is going to be in Spanish, MFers, right? So, all right.
Yeah.
Well, and street signs, schools?
We have an ESOL program, so they'll be in a class full of probably 30 students that also only speak Spanish. I know that when I was also in high school, there'll be people that would recently come and they'll be my age and they'll not know anything of English and they'll survive in school.
Yeah. Yeah, you could
wasn't
come here and
hard.
never, if you stay in the Southwest or in Southern California or in Florida, Southern Florida, you could really spend your entire life and never speak English.
Yeah.
Does anyone have a problem with that? I don't see what the problem is, right? If you're not demanding it, people say you should have to speak English, and people demand that you speak Spanish, but does your mother demand that people speak Spanish?
No.
Does she care if they speak English or Spanish?
No.
They don't care. You don't care. This is this thing that I hear from people who are not part of this community of bilingual or immigrant people. It's if they should have to speak English, and they come here and demand services in Spanish. But I don't ever hear anyone demanding anything in other languages. They're just getting on with their own language. And so, I don't know. I mean, that's a question. I don't hear it, but... So does your mom ever, though, hang on, just one final question. Does your mom ever think damn, I really need to learn English? Ever?
I mean, my sister is a Penn State alum, so whenever she came here for my sister and me, she does feel excluded, but she just gets by,
Yeah.
I'll just translate to her. She'll travel a lot to New York, but also it's kind of easier to get away with it in New York too.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's been fine.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I think I would say, I want to point out is The other side, when your mom, how old was she when she came here? Like 20 or so?
No, she was older. I don't know.
She was old. Like me
Yeah.
old or
Mm,
not that old?
I don't know.
Dude,
I was a
I'm
surprise
38.
baby, so like
Oh, yeah?
my mom had me like when she was older.
Oh, yeah? All right. Well, listen, one of the issues is learning a language when you get older is really difficult. So that's why I know some of you are probably studying language here at Penn State. And, you know, it's really hard. It's a lot easier when you're young, like your mom was in school in Nicaragua, right?
Yeah.
So, but it gets harder. And for me, in the various places where I've lived, and I've really tried to learn pieces of the language, and it's really, really difficult. And that's how people can come somewhere and live and never speak the language. Like I could go somewhere and never speak, you know?
But there's actually like something really interesting in Nicaragua. Like they started teaching English to the kids just because like a lot of tourists will come,
Yeah.
and to accommodate for the tourists, like they'll know English.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
What's your name again?
Jessica
Jessica
Garcia.
Garcia. Okay, gracias, Jessica. All right. Dude, I don't know. I think I live in this world where a lot of the debates and arguments we have are really not necessary. It doesn't really matter. It just doesn't matter that much. And mostly what we see in terms of the United States accommodating, like if you go to Lowe's or Home Depot, Lowe's and Home Depot, it's in Spanish and English, and that's true across the United States. All the signage in Lowe's and Home Depot and growing numbers of stores, it's all in Spanish and English. And what it is, it's the free market, bro. The free market, which has made the decision to say, look, it's in our interest because the number of Spanish speakers is growing, and in some area, the number of Mandarin speakers is growing, such that it's absolutely in our interest if we make our store bilingual. And so they do. And if it wasn't in their economic interest to do that, they wouldn't. And so what we're seeing a lot is people accommodating Spanish speakers because it's in their economic interest to do so. It's not like because they hate English speakers, because they're anti-American, because any number of reasons that you could come up with. No, it is because it is in their bottom line profit margin to say this is good for us to do, and so we're going to do it. And that's how it is, and that's how we roll. So that's how most things roll. All right, Mom. All right, can we go? God. Listen, man, can we just, does anyone have a question? Does anyone have a question? Because I'll just keep going. Dude.
All right. So something that I realize a lot is people who are for dreamers and all that, they say that it's because the kids shouldn't pay for their parents' mistakes, right?
Because what?
The kids shouldn't pay for their parents' mistakes because parents did something illegal, but they have nothing to do with that.
Yeah, right.
So my question is, if that's the case, then why do they also make the argument that white people have benefited from their ancestors' mistakes and therefore should pay for it?
Yeah, dude, that's a really good question. Yep. Yep. Why should white people have to pay? And why should, yeah, I don't know. It's a good question, dude. I don't know. Yeah. And here's the other side with the dreamer question is at some point in time, you're going to hit a wall. When you have, look, I said this last class, you want your system, you want most people in your system to be legalized in your system. When people are underground, it's a problem. And it is a problem. So you need people above ground, and you need to know who they are. You need to be able to account for them. And so when we have all these people living outside the system without papers, illegally, let's say, right, undocumented, then it is problematic for the larger functioning of the system. So therefore, it's okay. It's not to even ask who's paying for it. It's not even about paying. It's like, look, find some way to bring people into the system. And so historically in the United States, about every 10 to 15 years, and certainly starting with in the 1970s under Nixon, but then really under Ronald Reagan. So those of you who are part of the Republican Party, the first major attempt to give amnesty to undocumented workers was Ronald Reagan in the 1980s. And so it's like, look, we have to do this because we got to bring these people, the people who are undocumented, we got to bring them out into the system so that we can see it. So, yeah, I like that question, dude. Those are the questions that I like. It's like, yes, ma'am.
I don't know if I have a question or just a statement. It's just you said we have a free market, or the United States has a free market.
Well, I don't think we do, actually, but go ahead. Hang on, if we had a free market, we wouldn't subsidize rice farmers,
yes,
but go ahead.
that's true. But like the company acts at their best interest to maybe include Spanish into their company.
Yeah.
And but it's kind of true in the labor market that the company acts at their best interest to hire immigration at a lower salary and to it's still the best interest. Why are we okay with like the Spanish part but not okay with the wage depression part?
Exactly.
Like, why are we having two standards that you're eating this avocado for $1 instead of $4, but you cannot live with, you got a lower salary because of the H-1B visa?
Yeah, exactly. Or just because of somebody got a green card, or just because someone snuck into the country somehow or overstayed their visa. No, the reason we are and aren't okay is because we're not seeing that all the issues are linked together. So if I go back to Tuesday's class, and you compare the issues on both sides, you just have to go back and forth and back and forth. There's no easy answer to any of it. Yeah, I think people are, the reason if people are okay with wage depression is just because they don't know about it. They're not thinking about it. You will think about it, though, when you go out to get a job and like suddenly you're not getting the amount of work that you think you're going to get or the amount of money, and then you find out, well, but a lot of the jobs in this company that I'm going to start working for actually got exported out to Bangladesh. And there's somebody over in Bangladesh doing the job I was going to do for about $3 an hour. And so, okay, that's what happens. And suddenly, in a larger sense, then that becomes okay, but in a smaller sense. It's never mind. It'll take me forever. Yes, ma'am.
The system has ways to account for all the illegal immigrants. Because when you are here as an illegal immigrant, there are ways that you will still be accounted for for tax purposes.
So you will if you're right. If you you can be, yes.
The amount of illegal immigrants that I know of that have figured out ways to get an ITIN and taxpayer ID number, or that the company figures out a way to account for them so that they pay taxes.
Exactly.
How come that doesn't integrate into the identification part of the system? Because they are not interested. It doesn't work.
Yeah, and also because the U.S. doesn't have a national ID system. We just don't. We have what's called Social Security, but we do not have a national ID system. And I don't know why we don't have that, frankly. Yes, sir.
Sam, just a comment. A little while ago, you said about the bank bailout. Just take a little pause with that bailout figure. My phone conked off before I could actually Google something, but I believe the banks practically paid off all the bailout money that was given to them.
Oh, okay, now we're going to go in a new direction here.
Yeah, and the taxpayers actually made a buck on that, if not more than some. So what you said was, yes, theoretically was correct, but I'd take pause with how simplistic it sounded. To an extent dangerous.
Okay, so here, listen. I won't go further. I won't go much further on this because this happens to be this thing that I just hooked my teeth into in the past couple of years. So it's my working class self that every once in a while I sink my teeth in. It's immensely complex as to who pays and who doesn't pay, okay? We'll follow the $22 trillion number, and we can follow right now, for the sake of argument, all the illegality that took place with the banks, okay? Paying off, the banks paid off that money, bro, with what? With the profits from the banks, which come from all the money that all the American people invest in the banks. That's where the money comes from. It did not come from the investments of the shareholders of the banks. And they're two very different things, man. And so that has to be taken account for.
Yeah, just one thing.
Okay,
I think
go
we're
ahead.
mixing a couple of things, but just to make things clear, the bailout, which was specifically TARP, if I remember correctly,
That is correct.
that was about $700 or $800 billion. I think a substantial amount of that was paid off, and by substantial, I think it's over 90%.
Yeah, okay. That's a small part, but the TARP is a small part of it, man. All right, here's all you got to do, bro. Just look up. I hear you. Dudes, I'm blown away. First off, okay, that's fine. We can go there. Here's what you want to do. Just start Googling wealth fair. Just start Googling wealth fair. And start looking, just start doing research into the amount of money that goes into corporations called government subsidies. Government subsidies is welfare. It's welfare. It's tax dollars that goes into, whether it's oil companies or merchandise companies or natural gas companies or automobile companies. It doesn't matter, dude. The banks, it doesn't matter. Look at that. Dude, fuck. This is my working class side that just starts to lose my mind. And what happens is increasingly, dude.
Going back to the language thing,
Yeah.
I think the U.S. doesn't even have an official language. So
Dude, hang on. Thanks for bringing it up. I'm fine with that. I can't. All right, go ahead.
The U.S. doesn't have an official language.
We
so
don't.
So I feel like the fact that like maybe someone doesn't want to learn to speak English, that's their choice. Like you don't have to really force someone. Like if someone has a problem with someone who doesn't know how to speak English, then
That is correct.
like
So one of the arguments that people are making is that, hang on, you should hear this. One of the arguments that's on the table by lots of people is that the United States should have an official language, and that English should be the official language. In fact, there are many people who are arguing, mostly they've been in the Republican Party, I should add, that we need another amendment to make English our official language. And then other people are stepping up saying, we don't need another amendment. Like, what's the point of that? English is, for all intents and purposes, our official language, so just let it go. And besides, it makes no sense economically. But yeah, that's one of the arguments. So we don't have an official language. Yeah.
I feel like maybe like if it's better for like for Miami, maybe it's better to use the Spanish language. So like in my country, for instance, we don't really use Arabic. Like like 16% of the people in like Dubai are not from the actual like country. So like we use English instead. So if it's easier to use that specific language, then I think that's
You
the
just
best
use
way.
the language. Use whatever language it is. No, but it is a problem. If someone comes along and says, listen, I'm here with my culture. We don't speak English. I need these voting forms or these government forms or the Penn State application to be in Cantonese or who knows, right? Korean. Then it's like, no, you don't, dude. Fucking learn English. You know what I mean? So when it gets to that point and people start demanding that sort of thing, no, that's not. You can make that's a different argument to be off the table, right? Dude, what? Yes, ma'am. God. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Hi. So I think it's really interesting what you talk about with subsidies, especially because I'm in the College of Ag and taking a couple economics classes. So from my knowledge, the government subsidizes because they do it for a reason.
Yeah, right.
So from my knowledge, subsidies are to create lower prices so that companies don't have to pay and businesses don't have to pay a lot so that the prices can stay lower on consumer goods. So I guess my question is for you is, that's what all I've learned. All they want to teach me is what I've learned that. But I feel like you're only focusing on the negatives of it. And are you saying that really subsidies outbalance the negatives from the positives? Because if we don't subsidize those goods, they're going to be more expensive, and it's still going to be put into the economy in the long run. The money's either going to go through taxes, through subsidies, or we're going to pay for those goods with the money that's increasing the cost because we're not subsidizing the costs for these big businesses.
Yeah.
That's my question, I guess. I don't know. That's all I've learned,
No.
so I just want to hear a different perspective.
That's a brilliant question. Okay, let me. If you don't let's say we have electric cars, right? And right now the government is subsidizing electric cars. Okay, batteries, cars, the whole 9 yards. Why? Because they want people to buy them. If we don't subsidize them, people won't buy them. So we say, okay, but we want people to buy them. Well, who wants people to buy them? You know what I mean? And we say, well, but it's a public good. Let's say we need more electric cars. We need more electric cars, right? And then you turn out and you find out, wow, it's really interesting. The car companies, the people building the batteries and the electric cars, they poured all this money into into political action committees, right? In these elections and so on, to get people to actually turn around and have subsidies and so on. So right there, you're starting at a problem, right? So what if they're more expensive? People don't buy them. In a free market economy, people don't buy it, and that's fine. You don't buy it, and then you don't make them. So rice, if American rice producers can't produce rice or corn or whatever it is inexpensive enough for people to buy it, then people won't buy it. So then you buy your rice somewhere else. That's the free market. But we don't live in a free market. We live in a controlled market, in a socialist market where the government comes in and the government subsidizes these things. So is it good for the consumers? Yeah, it's good for the consumers. But it would be just as good for the consumers if you didn't subsidize it with taxpayer money and you just buy your rice from somewhere else. People, if you can't make your rice inexpensive enough for people to buy, then don't make the rice. That's capitalism. That's free market capitalism. Right, bro? My libertarian guy over here? Right? So that would be the argument. I'm fine with subsidizing. I don't need to be a free market libertarian, but this is a problem. When you subsidize banks, the bank goes under, you bail it out. It's like, why am I bailing out the banks? Why am I bailing out car companies? Why am I bailing out this stuff, right?
Yeah. I guess in a way, though, if we didn't subsidize them, wouldn't the money go into the economy anyway?
Exactly, it would. It would. That's the point. If you don't take the taxpayer money and you spend it on the rice farmers, you could just give it away to everybody. And like, whatever, here, take the money anywhere, or put it in schools, and then you fund people building construction of new schools, right? Instead of making rice. It doesn't really matter. It's going to go back in the economy anyway. Yeah, exactly. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It's just a short comment to the gentleman up there. I see what you're saying, but you have to acknowledge that when people come here for the Dreamers Act, they're coming for a better life. There's a difference between coming for a better life and killing people. There's a large difference between that. So I'm not saying that white people get penalized in the future for their actions, but you also have to acknowledge that those are two completely separate things that people came for.
Yeah, but listen, one of the issues, though, right, maybe dreamers are coming for a better life, or their parents brought them here for a better life, right? But now you've walked into this moral argument. Like, I might steal her cell phone because it's going to make my life better, but that doesn't mean I can steal her cell phone, right? I might steal her cell phone because I know a homeless person who really needs a cell phone, and if I give this homeless person a cell phone, they'll be able to feed their children. That doesn't make it okay, you know what I mean? No, the DACA dreamer argument that people came for a better life, it doesn't necessarily just hold water. It's like, what's that?
People don't need cell phones.
What's that?
Homeless people don't need cell phones.
Nah, homeless people do need cell phones.
I just wanted to add to her as well.
No, but it could be. That's just one example. I could give you a lot of examples. It's just like once you walk into the moralistic argument, it's a slippery slope, right? Dreamers are here for a better life. Whatever. Yeah, I want a better life too.
I was just gonna add that, like, I don't think that.
But I appreciate that. That's a good point.
Yo,
I like what you're
where's
saying.
the attendance sheet here in this section? We don't have it.
Final statement?
I don't think that dreamers are.
Did it go the whole way back or okay?
All right, go ahead. Last statement, and then we're
Okay.
out of here.
I just don't think that dreamers necessarily steal anything because, I mean,
Like they come here to find opportunity. That's not stealing somebody else's opportunity.
Yeah, I know. I'll buy that. All right. All right, y'all.